Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Compression Podcast. Please tune in and watch the video because Jerome and I are testing out different video capabilities, and I'm really working on getting that level up. I've done a pretty good job, but I realized whenever I was exporting videos for snippets and for posts that the quality was kind of going down. So we'll see how this one turns out and if the quality stays up to where it looks like on the screen when we're first recording. Jerome, how you doing, man? You're coming off a big week and weekend, but really a big week. How you feeling, man? How you doing?
So good that I'm still on the plane you picked me up on or in at the end of the conference. I'm not leaving, baby.
You're not going anywhere. Not going anywhere, man. Well, I can't wait to catch up on all of that stuff and how everything went. I think it was a one-of-a-kind event, and I'm excited to hear some perspective on that. But, we're back to our regular programming on the Compression Podcast, giving you guys a check-in on how we're doing on the $100 million goal. And I'm proud to say this week, the last 2 weeks, we've had two closings. So we're jumping up from 19.3 to 20.2. So we hit the $20 million crest. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm excited to say that we have some very big closings coming up very shortly. But just watch that number, guys. It's going to continue to jump. And, these last two was a mix of a brokerage deal and another acquisition for FTW Investments. So I'm pumped about that. We're going to talk about some of the intentions that you're going to get out of today's episode. And one of the big intentions is a perspective shift and how travel and just zooming out can give you that perspective. But also something I learned while I was in Miami in the state of emergencies from all the spring breakers. And I promise you, I was not a part of that group that was causing all of the ruckus down there. But there was a couple things that happened on that trip that were very interesting. And as I've journaled and thought and meditated a lot about the trip, I'm going to share those with you guys today. So defining the outcome, we're 3 months in, baby. April is next week, I'm pretty sure. And today's March 26th. So first quarter is gone. And so, in the old football days, when it was fourth quarter, we'd always throw up the four, hey, fourth quarter time to turn it on. Well, I'm throwing up the two and it's time to turn it on. I can also tell you guys about some big news that is happening within the structure of my two businesses and how they are sort of becoming one, how I've overcome some very crucial conversations, how I planned for those conversations, and how those conversations went. And we also had our FTW retreat just recently, yesterday. So we spent 9 hours together talking about our entrepreneurial operating system from the book Gino Wickman's Traction, and setting new rocks and doing some budget to actuals and seeing kind of where the businesses are. We've got some big personnel coming online with FTW. So in the next 2 weeks, we have our acquisitions associate starting. We have our director of operations starting, and we're also making another change within the business and hiring a financial controller. Believe it or not. So some big changes, man, going on in my life and in my business. Affirmation, man. What have I been telling myself recently? Well, it's change your habits, change your life. It's time to implement new habits. And New habits mostly around, everything that I talked about in January, February, and the beginning of March about anxiety and stress and all of these different components that were kind of weighing on me a little bit. So I've got some new habits and I'm implementing Tony Robbins' triad. So changing my physiology, my language, and my focus. So that's one. And I'm starting to be able to get to the point where I'm doing it in the moment, which is very exciting. I can actually zoom out of a pretty crucial time and say, hey, you got to change one of these three. And typically you can't change your physiology when you're meeting with somebody. So you can change your focus and your language. So, and then I'm also breathing a lot more, guys. So I talked about my heart rate the last couple months, and I've got that heart rate down. I've got a new tracking device right here. If you're watching the video, it's called the Lumen, and the Lumen tracks my metabolic fuel usage through carbon dioxide levels in my breath. And I know that sounds really high tech, but it's really not. I just breathe into the thing every morning and see if I'm burning carbs or I'm burning fats and what my diet needs to look like. So I'm trying to rebuild my metabolism the right way and taking it very seriously, So just some health risks that have happened in my immediate family, not that my blood, but Taylor's, and it's just a great reminder of how important your health is. One of my favorite quotes about health is, when you have your health, you have 1,000 goals and dreams. But when you do not have your health, you have one: to have your health. So focus on your health. We're actually implementing the new FTW culture, or for the win culture. And health is one of those components. We want our employees to be healthy. We want our principals to be healthy. When we think about our 10-year vision of where we want to be, which we laid out very clearly yesterday, a big part of that is making sure that we're mentally healthy, but also physically healthy. We're not getting any younger, and the children are continuing to come for all three of us. And so focusing on stress management and your actual physical health is so important. So there's a lot there to unpack in the time that we have, Jerome. But what do you want to start with, man, after I kind of gave you a little bit of a download over the last week and a half or so?
Well, I gotta ask, right? I mean, you go on vacation and then there's a state of emergency. Walk me down the path on what you figured out there first.
Yeah, so didn't really think about going to Miami in March, during spring break. Didn't think about that at all. I'm not sure there's any COVID restrictions in Florida whatsoever, even though it is Miami, probably one of the most liberal cities in Miami or Florida. But anyways, Miami was very open with the mask regulations and things like that. But at the end of the day, it was spring break. And so people were, going there to party and to be around warm weather. And my first inclination of this was when I got off the plane and I started to see what people were wearing. And I was like, wow, I'm not in my Kansas City, collared shirt and plaid on anymore. I'm in Miami, baby, where it's all glitz and glamour and really a whole lot less clothing than what we wear here in the Midwest, to be honest with you. So what was really interesting about that perspective was, you can get desensitized to the value of your personal identity very easily. And I think your personal identity is so important to cherish, but also to only share with the right folks. That's all I will say about that. My wife was definitely one that had the most clothing on at the swim apparel, I guess the swimming pool and things like that. But at the end of the day, I thought I was going to be very, sidetracked through the whole weekend because of all these women that were wearing little to nothing. And, it was a great perspective that my wife and I have focused so much on loving each other and being able to look at somebody and not see kind of the exterior, but really seeing who they are and in that vision of that. So that was the big first perspective. The second one was, going down there and, 10 years ago, about this time, I was turning 21 in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And my buddies sent me a picture of me passed out in a recliner chair after my 21st birthday with a rubber chicken, sat on my shoulder. I just passed out in a recliner. And I was like, man, what 10 years can do, just from a perspective, but also what you focus on. And so the state of emergency came Saturday night. We were actually leaving early on Sunday. And our hotel was impacted by a car that exploded. And the car exploded. I don't know why, but the car exploded and knocked out power on a part of Miami Beach. And so from 11 o'clock till 2 or 3 in the morning, we didn't have electricity. It's hot, in the room and stuff like that. But what was more, I think, stressful was there's these intercom systems in these hotels that come on and are so loud. I mean, they woke us up and it was, may I have your attention, please? And they told us that they were working on the power outage. They came on 15 minutes later, told us the same thing. And then 15 minutes later after that, they came on and said, without any previous speaking of this, was we have located the fire and it's not very close to our hotel. And I'm on the 10th floor of this thing with my wife, like, wait, there's a fire? Like, what is happening? What is going on? And we found out that the mayor, after doing a quick Google search, had just, impacted or put in place a curfew downtown Miami, literally where we had just had dinner. So we were on vacation, state of emergency, electricity went out. My wife's literally shaking convulsively because she's getting into her own head on, hey, I'm not going to make it home and see my babies and all this stuff. So I had to calm her down. I had to figure out the situation. And the whole perspective shift, man, came from, everybody talks about the cars, the house, the beach, the money. And when you're in that, and you're in the midst of it, and everything that you could want from a hedonistic kind of perspective is there. When you see it kind of all unveil, and you've had the other part, which is the faith, the family, the fitness, it really starts to not be as glamorous as we all think. And so the big perspective was focus on, your core values and what you've laid out for you and your family. And that's what's really important. And I was right in the middle of it. And I came back with a renewed sense of focus, of perspective in relation to what's important. And because it's hard, when you're out there grinding and you're trying to get transactions done, for what reason? Well, to build wealth, to build income, to build a business. And then you get thrown in the middle of, what all of that could result into. And it's not what you want. What you want is right in front of you. It was just an awesome manifestation of what we talk about on the show a lot, in the flesh. So that was the big perspective shift. That was the state of emergency in Florida.
Wow. And so when everything's at risk, you get really clear about what's actually important.
That's exactly right, man. That is exactly right. I mean, I think I had a very similar situation that you did in the helicopter recently, not to that extent maybe, but it at least gave me the perspective that, being here in Kansas City and doing the grind with the kids and the work and everything the journey is the goal, and we've talked a lot about that. Paulo Coelho wrote that book, The Alchemist. And I felt like I was writing my own version of The Alchemist the last week while I was in Miami.
Wow. Okay. So, let's get into the nuts and bolts. You said you're hiring a controller.
Yeah.
That's like brand new.
Yeah, it is.
What happened?
Well, what happened was on our retreat yesterday, we kind of sat down and we talked about all of the needs in the business. We talked about the personnel that we currently have, and we laid out every single task related to the commercial real estate business, but also what tasks are being covered, which ones are not. And then we allocated those tasks to the right buckets. And we thought we were going to need a asset manager or project manager. It turns out, most of the tasks for the needs that we have right now are in relation to financial controls, bookkeeping and being able to really have, I'll say, transparency into that. And so we have a gentleman starting with us as our director of operations. He's really going to be focused on project management, transaction management, which is great because that's exactly what he's come from and done. And then we have, we had this thought that the asset manager needs to be next. Well, after looking at all those tasks, we figured out that, there'll be some rollover from the project manager and asset manager. There will be an asset manager at some time, but right now the need is to be focused more on the property management and the financial controls around our business and the bookkeeping to allow for that asset manager to really do what they're supposed to be doing. So I think that was the big breakthrough that we got to yesterday. In relation to that, we're making a big switch. So I can finally say this, but we are starting our own real estate brokerage, and it's not to do third-party brokerage, it's to do our own acquisitions. But I am going through being licensed as a broker, and we will start a new business on the real estate brokerage side, which will allow us at some point to bring our property management in-house. And that's really, really important too. I can't speak to our property management quite yet, but there will be another update on that front very soon as well. So a lot of changes, but it's also caused, and we've talked about this offline, it's caused some shift in my focus, because I've had to take this 48-hour broker pre-licensing course, and then I have to go pass the test. And the test is not easy. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of law. There's a lot of weird rules that you have to know about. And so a lot of people don't get this license, but I have to do this for our business. And so I had to sit down with my current managing broker, other folks in the real estate office, and I had to kind of walk them through why and what that transition is going to look like. And that led to quite a few crucial conversations, is why I posted about that recently. How I approach those and the state methodology or the mental model that I put up on LinkedIn. So those are all the big changes in relation to FTW and the business that we've got going on here, man.
Wow, that's a big shift, man.
Well, it's a big shift.
You're going to be vertically integrated throughout, though, at least. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that came to fruition because I always kept saying, like, when we get to that level of that person over there, and I failed to realize we are at that level, and we're probably beyond that level from a lot of capacity standpoint. And so, I think that going all in is very, very important. And if we're going to do this, and we're going to be the operators, and we're going to be this commercial real estate business, which we are, and that's the focus, then we have to act like it. And that means taking a whole lot less from a cash flow standpoint for the principals while we grow this business and focus on putting the right people in the right seats. But being vertically integrated, the 5 commandments of a business: control, entry, need, scale, and time. Control is the first one because it is probably the most important, especially in this space. So no longer will we have to be at mercy to anybody to be able to pull what we need to run our business correctly. And so, it was a model that I have seen successfully implemented with most of my mentors here in Kansas City. And anybody, I'll just throw a name out there like a Brian Burke or somebody like that, who has really been doing this for a very long time. Brian Anderson as well. All of those guys that I respect. John Azar, all these guys, they've done a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about. But I guess what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to get, what my realization is I thought that might happen 2 to 3 years from now. It's right now. It is right now. And it's right in front of me. I am in the thick of it. This is the first 2 days in 24 months that I have not posted on LinkedIn personally in the mornings, and that's a big shift for me. It might sound small, but it's a big shift because I've got the things set up now where I'm testing. Well, if I put one piece of organic content that gets all my views in the morning, what about all my other views during the day? And it seems to me that if I don't post something organically in the morning, those views are more spread out throughout the day. And I might have a big boost at 7 o'clock in the morning, but then something with the algorithm says, hey, his other posts during the day don't give him as much exposure. Each one is now getting 1,500 views. And so it's just things like that I'm like, oh man, things I thought were so important earlier on in my business, those are shifting. So that was a big perspective. The second big perspective that I wrote down here, Logan Freeman is going to impact this business substantially. I've always tried to separate myself from certain aspects of a business that maybe I don't like as much, or maybe I don't think is my expertise, or maybe somebody else should be doing. And maybe I shouldn't, or I don't want to manage people. And, I keep going back to this quote, what got you here isn't going to get you there. So I see my role, my life, my business, my job, my tasks, my responsibilities shifting in front of me. And I think all of the anxiety that I had earlier this year, January, February, March, I was still holding on that old identity of, hey, you're just the transaction guy, you're the rainmaker, you're all of this. And that's great. That's a component of it, but it's not all of it. And I've got to be all of it. And as I continue to leverage, as I'm learning from Naval Ravikant, one way to leverage is using other people. And if I can mimic, if I can pour into, if I can inspire, lead other people, that is going to be what really gets me to the next level. And so I was holding on to this old identity, holding on to this old perspective that, I'm going to stay in this bucket and not move over here to this one. I'm realizing if you want to have a business that has $1 billion of assets under management, that you're managing $350 million worth of equity, then you as a principal are going to have to step up into a role that you didn't think or you weren't ready for at some point. And that might have happened in my mind 2, 3, 4 years from now. It's happening now. And we're at this inflection point, right? We talked about this a little bit last week, but we're at this inflection point in this business that I have to step up. I have to step up as a leader. I have to step up as a businessman. I have to step up as a person and a human being. And I have to let go of this identity that I was just going to be one component of this whole thing and say, oh man, you got to step back, look at yourself, look at your business like a hawk and pop in where you're needed. Pop in over here. That means physically popping in. I'm not in this office as much. The last 3 weeks, every single day, I have been with somebody. I have been out and about. I have been doing something different. But I got in this little bubble. I got in this little COVID bubble of, I'm going to just, worm up into my little office here. It's cozy. It's all business from the waist up and all party from the waist down. I got shorts on right now still. But that was impeding on my ability to allow myself to see the holistic picture. And when I went to Miami, when I got COVID, when I looked at our business, when I talked to you, Jerome, when I've done these recordings, the awareness of where I am now, where I need to be, and where I'm going has completely changed. And I know that I always say every week that I've had these mental breakthroughs, but I hope people are listening to this because it's hard for me to communicate exactly what I'm going through because it's happening right now. It's happening right now. And so it's difficult because you usually don't hear it until something has already happened. But most top performers understand that you have to realize what's going on in the moment. And so, long story short, try to wrap this thought up because I'm probably rambling a little bit.
You are. You've got a stream of consciousness. Keep going.
But all of the things that I have set out to achieve, and I'm putting quotations around those, to achieve, are happening right now. And so I have to step back, be aware of them, and embrace it. I have to embrace this change, embrace all of this adversity that it very well might be self-imposed adversity, but it's adversity, and say, okay, I am stepping into that. I am stepping into the breach. I'm accepting it. And I'm going to take extreme ownership of it. And I think that's what you're seeing in our business with the brokerage changing, with the personnel, with all of my leadership that's going to be needed at FTW. So I'm going to leave it there, man, and we can dive into it.
So the the word that I didn't hear that I wanted to hear with the whole growth thing is delegate.
Oh yeah,
And so, you have to grow into the person that delegates because you're used to just doing it with your muscle.
that's right.
And we've talked about it a few times. And, the one level of delegation that I enjoy the most is, hey, here's what I want to accomplish. Go do it.
Yep.
Right. There's a bunch of other levels. And I prefer not to tell the person, hey, go get this thing from this place and bring it back. It's not fun to me. But, you know, the art of delegation is super special. The other thing I'll say before I get your response to that is the level of awareness that you have right now is outstanding. I don't think most people actually see what's happening, but I mean, this is no different than you being on the field
That's right.
and seeing that the blitz is coming and checking the protection so that the
Mhm.
quarterback doesn't get killed,
That's right.
right? Like this is literally what's happening. You're auto-blending at the line. This is happening quicker and faster than what you expected. Maybe. I
Yeah.
think you had an inkling when we started talking about compression in November that there was something on the horizon.
Yep.
Still, it being faster than what you expected is fine. Um, so let's go back to the delegation. What what can we do, or what are you doing already to get comfortable? Because there's a level of comfort because it takes a lot to win Logan's trust, right? So how are we going to get comfortable with the new folks so that we feel good delegating? Or do we even have to? Do we give it and then pull it back if it's too much? What
Yep.
what do you think the strategy is here for you?
So on the delegation piece, there's three levels of delegation that we've talked about: directive, objective, and leadership. And thank you for putting me up on game on that podcast. And I appreciate that. What I'm attempting to get to obviously is leadership. What I'm going to have to start with is directive. And what the goal is to transition to objective as fast as possible. Now, with that being said, the delegation from my perspective is twofold. So we have our transaction manager coming on. I'm running a lot of point on getting transactions over the finish line, just getting them through the due diligence phase. Doing all of the checklists that we have in relation to that. So when our director of operations starts, that's his number one role. There's about 42 tasks for him to take off of collectively the three principals' plates. So that's one. And he's already been involved in our Monday meetings. He's already been involved in all of the new tech, everything that we've got going on. And we implemented Yardi Matrix. We've got a new CRM coming in. We've got all these different prospecting things that we're also doing. So that's one. That's going to take a huge amount of work off of just busy work off of my plate and off of the other principals' plates. So that's the first one. The second is our acquisitions associate. So I have a bottleneck in our business right now, which is doing a first look on all of our projects, right? So we get a deal into our pipeline per se. It's taking way too long for us to get feedback, to get an LOI written up, to get it presented to the group, all of that. So, and we're spending a lot of time trying to do that. What also happens is we're working on closing transactions. And so while we're closing transactions, we can't work on filling the pipeline of transactions. And so, Jordan's role is going to be, doing that first look, having the communication with all of the brokers, doing outreach to property owners, all things that I'm doing right now as well. So I think that how we do it is I'm going to have to spend a lot of time over the next 4 to 6 weeks getting these folks to the point where they can get to objective delegation as fast as possible. And that's what I'm focused on. And so I've thought through a whole onboarding process down to the days for Jordan to work through on getting up to speed on technology, getting the sales scripts into the brain, working on the property database, how to underwrite the deals effectively, how to present those to the principal so we can move fast, how to write letters of intent, how to negotiate contracts, how to run a transaction. So Long story, those two folks that are coming on, it's going to take a lot of direction at first. I hope that we can get to a point of objective in about 3 to 5 weeks for both of those. And so I'm committed to, spending a lot of time until that point where we can get there. And I think once I do, my whole plate is going to look a lot less full than it is right now. So that's my approach right now, at least.
Yeah, it's not going to be less full. You'll just put something else on it. You're
Oh
going back to
yeah.
the buffet for something bigger.
Yep.
So the thing that I want to try to cut off at the pass is you had the anxiety attack 3 weeks ago when you
Yep.
realized that it was out of your control. You couldn't do it anymore. It was bigger than you. As more people come in, I I have concern about that coming back, and
Sure.
we've got to figure out what it's going to take for you to be comfortable with them so that we can get to that as quickly as possible. And if you're not going to be comfortable, figure out what the next plan is, because
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest failure point right now. Because delegating and not getting the results you want is freaking terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first step was acceptance, and I think I got through that. The last 2 weeks was accepting that my life, my role, my tasks are changing. And so during COVID, you kept asking me what were the high value tasks, right? Like, what are you doing that's high value? And I got a lot of those knocked out and clarified for myself. And what I'm learning too is thought leadership is maybe my highest value task right now.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is being able to take macroeconomic policies and different, thought processes around, inflation, stimulus, interest rates, how it's going to impact not only commercial real estate, but Kansas City in general. So a lot of thought leadership time has been, delegated onto my plate. And I say delegated, I delegated to myself to be communicating that to our investors through monthly webinar series. But the masterclass will be live by probably mid-April. And I'm so proud of this content that we are put out and how we're going to roll it out that I can't contain my excitement. But I'm very excited about being able to direct investors to this training, being able to see if they actually go on and look at it and watch it, and being able to say, hey, on that first call, it will be a little bit of introduction, but you've got homework to bring to that call. And if you can't get through that loop, that's fine. Maybe 6 months, in 6 months, you will. But it's no longer Logan taking him through that thought process of the 10 critical investment growth factors. It is already outlined. There's worksheet, there's a homework, and we are going to talk about that on the first call. So scalability for my time on new investor acquisition is going to be magnified very, very quickly. And I'm going to be able to hit the multiples very quickly. So I think to answer your question about the anxiety piece, I think I had to get through the acceptance of this new change and kind of what my new role potentially looks like. And that was the first step. I'm still working through that, but at least I'm aware of it and moving towards that. And then obviously, implementing that's going to be a whole different ballgame. But what I'm seeing now and where we're at in our business now is I'm not having to spend as much time prospecting. We have positioned the last 15 months. Now I have to do is I have to magnify that positioning. And so to do that is thought leadership. It's scaling my time through automation with this masterclass or action plan, whatever you want to call it. And then it's pouring back into people that are going to be basically leverage for me to continue to build relationships with more, I'll say higher value, relationships that I need to be focused on anyway. So that's how I'm approaching that situation.
Yeah, what's most interesting, and I picked this up from John Lee Dumas earlier this week, is, he's giving people 15 minutes to interview him. And he said, look, man, don't ask me about my backstory. You can get that from anywhere, right? And some people will think, oh, the arrogance of it all. He's like, no, think about it. Like, ask me something that I haven't answered already.
That's right.
So then your folks are getting other stuff, and you can pre-record whatever you want on the front end. And literally, and I'm I'm not John Lee Dumas by any stretch of the imagination from a success standpoint or earn an income standpoint. But when people want to have an intro call for me to introduce myself to them, I don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I send them to the 200 plus podcasts that are out there where I say the same thing over and over again.
exactly.
And I don't know if that makes me a bad person or not, but I don't want to spend my time doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And so when I get on the line with somebody, I want to talk about something real, right? I want to talk about something meaningful, depth, meaty. But you
Yes.
already know my perspective because I don't hide that from anybody. You don't need to have a one-on-one phone call with me to understand how I view the world and what I've placed value on. And so I think by putting in that gate, I think for the people who are getting in front of you finally after they go through that, they're serious and they know that this is not a game. We're not goofing around. We're not playing with the time factor. There's so many other things I can do other than talk to you. That doesn't mean that you're not special or important. But when I talk to you, I want to talk to you about something that's actually actionable and meaningful, not, hey, how you doing? And
Exactly.
there's such a shift there for me because, you know, I just think anybody who asks for 15 minutes, they feel like it doesn't cost anything. But it does. It
Oh
costs so
yeah,
much.
it absolutely
It
does,
costs so
man.
much.
So we talked a lot about the perspective shifts, the changes. We haven't really talked about any wins. I celebrate my 31st birthday, and I think that's like something around 11,265 days, something like that. And the last 7 of those, 2,500 days or 2,400 days, I've been really focused on becoming the best version of myself. And so the big win was saying, hey, I probably got at least hopefully another 11 to 15,000 days. And like exactly what you're saying to that point is I want to use them in the right way. And I want to maximize every single minute of those days. So I turned 31 on this Monday. Yes, this Monday. So 4 days ago, I turned 31, celebrated that birthday, which was very exciting. And got to spend it with my beautiful wife and kiddos. So very blessed and, happy to have another 365 days around this crazy world that we live in. So that was the big win. Another big win was, I'm dubbing this year the evolution of capital for FTW investments, and more to come on that. But, so many people in this space are just chasing dollars. And I don't mean they're trying to make the dollars. Well, they are, but they're trying to raise the dollars. And until you can start to have the dollars be raised around you and you're just at the middle of them, you're going to struggle. But I'm going to talk about that a whole lot later in this year. But I got some, I keep seeing all these capital raising events and all of this stuff. And hey, I'm in a mastermind to learn about capital raising. But capital raising is so much more than what is being put out there right now. And maybe someday Jerome and I will spend some time putting some thoughts together just around how to get capital, how to get deals, funded. But we are not only just raising capital now, we are starting to cycle capital. And this is where it gets very exciting. We're going to have probably 3 dispositions this year. And we have some very, interesting ways that we're going to go about cycling those properties. We're talking about different funds that are going to be probably started very, very soon. We're getting into the single family home space for rentals with affordable housing, which is very interesting. We've got some great community connections here in Kansas City. So much more to talk about this, but this is higher level stuff in relation to the evolution of capital. So that was a big win. Having the FTW retreat, huge learnings, big win for us. The progression on the masterclass, big win, pushing that thing forward. And then the crucial conversations that I was able to facilitate were also big wins. Losses, I've had too many happy hours recently. So I'll just say that. Everybody knows if you want a happy hour, you want to drink with me, it's going to have to be between 2 and 4 because and I'm going to have 2 drinks max, and I'm leaving at 4 to go pick up my kids. And so anyways, there's been a lot of those recently, and I'm trying to minimize the amount of happy hours that I could have. I think that has led to the second loss, which is I've just been tired. I've been a little tired. Ezra has been not sleeping very well. Bella is going through an interesting phase where she's having nightmares, which is really odd. But she's waking up in the middle of the night scared. So I'm having to get up and go in there and hold my little baby girl. But that's just, that's totally fine. But all of that, switching back from Miami time to Missouri time and getting back into the routine has led to a little less energy, I would say. But so that was a loss for me, man. And then we've talked a lot about these learnings. But there was 1 or 2 that I wanted to share that I haven't talked about yet. And a question that I've been asking myself a lot recently is, how will this get done? Eliminate the if and highlight the how. Second one, economics plus real estate plus communication plus team plus opportunities equals success. And then the third one, it's me. I am the linchpin and I am the key. And don't run away from that, but embrace that. And so those are some big learnings for me the last week and a half. And there's going to be a lot of new ones coming here very, very soon. But I think I'll just reiterate the fact that it's all happening kind of all around. We're in this interesting time right now. Commercial real estate started to tick back up. There's more interest than ever, in my opinion, or at least definitely in the last 15 months than there is right now. And we have positioned ourselves very well, but we're also positioning ourselves as experts and as leaders. And to be those types of people, you have to do things that other people aren't. And so spending 8-9 hours talking about the last 3 months, tracking everything, looking at KPIs, working through the personnel, working through tasks, working through and then reallocating and shifting and pivoting in the moment is so important. So the awareness piece has been huge, learning, and not just the awareness, but actually taking the time to work through that awareness whenever you have 1,000 things to do, zooming out and actually finding the time to do it, but then also implementing the change that you have now identified. That's the key. And so all of that has created I'll say a new sense of clarity. And that's what we talk a lot about, right? Is clarity. And I'm going to sit down this weekend and go through the next quarterly personal goals and setting my monthly intentions and my weekly intentions. But I feel really clear right now with what I need to do to move the ball down the field. And that is a good feeling. Now, how we get there, it's going to be bumpy. I'm going to have to break some tackles. I'm going to have to stiff arm some people. I'm going to have to call out some blocks. I'm going to have to cut block some people to get there. But at least we know where we're going. FTW operates in the 2-minute drill all of the time. And what I mean by that, if you study football analytics, more points are scored 2 minutes before the half and 2 minutes at the end of the game than any other time. And that's why you see all these coaches trying to implement the hurry up offense and keep that mentality. But I'm keeping that mentality on myself, on our business all of the time. It's the 2-minute rule, baby. We might be only in the second quarter, but we are operating in the 2-minute rule all of the time. I'm going to leave it there, Jerome.
Love it. Love it.
Well, there is only one way to end another great episode of the Compression Podcast, and it is with a quote out of my handy dandy book that I think people really like, because we get quotes from Drake and Beyonce and Walt Disney and all these people. I don't know Meredith Vieira. She's a journalist, but she did say this: someone much smarter than me once said, "Don't go with the flow. You are the flow." Ooh-wee. I'm just going to leave you with that. Jerome, thanks for joining me on the road, man. I really appreciate it being here for another episode.
Thanks, brother. Talk soon.
Hey compressors, if something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.